Right, everyone, I think we'll get started. In typical ENCONA fashion, we love change for good reasons, and we've switched from Zoom to MS Teams. So this is the first time I'm running a webinar on Teams. I'm glad it started up so far. That's a good sign. Welcome to our first webinar of 2023 with the big topic and the big news for everyone's changes to the VDA 6.3 standard. Hans, very pleased to have you on the line with us. I believe you're in Tunisia, and it's been a few months since I wrangled you to run a webinar for us.
Yeah, hi Tarryn. Hello, everybody.
I miss Tunisia. What an awesome country.
Yeah, very, very interesting country.
Very cool.
Indeed.
So for everyone who hasn't met me yet, virtually, I'm Tarryn. I'm the marketing manager here at ENCONA, and also very involved in our digital learning aspects. We host these webinars every few months. We always share them, so this one will certainly be shared afterwards also, the full recordings as well as slides, and they'll be up on our blog and on our podcast. You're welcome to also share those far and wide. And we pick really what is the most popular top topics, clients, what are the frequently asked questions we get. No surprise, what's changed in VDA 6.3 is the topic for this time. Guess I'd like to start, all good things, like Trupo himself, they mature, they evolve with time, and changes happen. Same like me, turning 40 and needing glasses, or a good bottle of wine, really. I'm not going to take much more time. Hans, I'm going to hand over to you to please share your knowledge with us. If I can ask you all, please go ahead and use the chat function, and please submit questions via the Q&A function, which we'll certainly cover at the end. Over to you, Hans.
Cool, thank you, Tarryn. It's always difficult to talk after you, I must say. After so many webinars that you have moderated for us, it's another great start. So thanks again, Tarryn. Hello, everybody. Good morning, good lunchtime, good evening, wherever you guys might calling in for this event. Please receive my best regards. Thank you very much for making time for, I believe, quite an actual topic in and around the industry of process auditing and around VDA 6.3. As you guys all know, we from ENCONA are holding an accredited license as a license partner to VDA in Berlin. So not only that we have the authorization and permission to provide authorized and accredited VDA training courses to our clients, we also get so-called calibration trainings with the representatives from Berlin that took part of the task force groups in developing these standards and upgrades. So it is not only our pleasure, but also our responsibility to pass on quite some important informations in and around the changes. And consequently, this is also the driving content of this event. Many people come and ask, what is, and thinking about it's a revolutionary changes and all this and that. You can generally upfront rest assured it is not as huge and impactful that many would like to believe. However, in certain areas, there's quite some significance noticeable, but in other areas, I'm going to talk you through real quick in this event to bring you, or align. Let's call it align to what has really been going on in this last modification of VDA 6.3. Okay. I'm just gonna, why did the VDA roll out a revision in general, starting from the very left? It is common practice also in international standards, and you know that from all ISO standards, that they're going through every 5 to 6 years, a review just to understand whether or not the current content is still representing the state of the art. So every content block, every content clause of a standard, with that being said, comes under review to understand, are there any changes required or needed to bring it back to state of the art? So that was one of the ideas following the international standards. So there is a task force groups, and I don't know the ones of you that are aware of how such a VDA guideline gets designed. That's maybe might be a quite interesting information. So basically, the VDA QMC, which is the Quality Management Center in Berlin, is the driving force of organizing all that. But there is also the QMA that organizes task force groups, and as task force groups, they'll be giving a task to design one of these state-of-the-art standards for the automotive industry. And who gets voted into these task force groups is basically representatives from the OEMs, from the Mercedes-Benz car group and BMW car group and Volkswagen car group, but also from very relevant big tier 1 suppliers. So they basically form a task force group, and they work and design based on the latest news and the latest state-of-the-art concepts, those standards, and then they issue a yellow version where everybody can have a look and bring questions back before it becomes eventually a red book or a red version, final approval version, if you want to call it that. So all these standards get designed and developed by representatives from the German car makers, plus very relevant and big tier 1 suppliers. Okay. Another one, streamlining and slimming down the standard as the next point. You will see there, it's by far not containing as many pages as the previous books that you are in possession of. That is one of the reasons, considering more and more the software aspects. That's going to be quite an interesting one, simply because we are in that stage of autonomous driving, automotive industry in the future, vehicle operations of the future, software becoming more and more into the vehicles. Consequently, software per se was considered a lot stronger in this latest update compared to the previous ones. Strengthening requirements for procurement activities. That's where we're going to spend some time, folks. I can tell you that. Procurement becomes, of course, or has always been, a huge important factor. As we all know, the OEMs predominantly design the vehicles, but they purchase modules, sub-assemblies, and components from a global supply chain. Consequently, the requirements and the quality of purchased materials is paramount for this industry, and with that also procurement activities, which has been considered a lot stronger. And dealing with the VDA 6.3 for services section, yeah, there was also a driving consideration to go into this review, simply because the VDA 6.3 for services has been eliminated from the latest version and dealt with it differently. So those are the driving ideas as to why the revision came to enroll out. And in general, as a summary, if you want to call it that, on the left-hand side, the 2016 version versus the 23 version. If you want a comparison, there is one question more. I will elaborate on that in the new one, so it's not quite a significant change. We have on both sides still 18 of these so-called star questions, or questions that carrying an asterisk. They have been removed a little bit differently, but the total amount is still the same. For the potential analysis, that is your P1 section, we have a slight modification. There's one reduced or in the 2023 version when it comes to potential analysis. But if you look at those pictures, you can see already there's not a significant change just by pure numbers. But I will elaborate then on the details as to what exactly has changed in there. 205 pages, previous version versus 104. So the main reason as to why it's cut down nearly to half is simply the fact that the VDA 6.3 questionnaire for the service processes has been removed from this. So this is the significant reason as to why the number of total pages of this requirement book or standard, if we want to call that, is it went to half. Let's put it that way. So what has not been changed? That's also confusion. That's why we worked this into this presentation as well. So there is still, from left to right, the structure of the questionnaire. We're still talking about a P2 to P7 structure of the questionnaire. That has been untouched. The grading system, the downgrading system from A, B to C for all overall assessments has not been changed. It's still the same. Also, the assessment model, so the assessment for each and every questionnaire is still your 10, 8, 6, 4, and 0 points. That has been untouched and is still the same. Previous downgrading rules are the same. And the use of the turtle diagram, the turtle model, also has been not touched. So although we really observed that the turtle diagram is really not much in use anyway in order to prepare those process audits, but as part of the standard, the turtle diagram methodology to prepare certain process audits is still in place, as you are aware of that from the 2016 version. So untouched. So we do have your ABC rating, anything greater even 90% overall compliance out of the audit event will remain your status A. That's what we're all driving for, and often not been awarded by customers. Anything from 80 to 89 is still considered classified as a B, and anything from 0 to 79% overall compliance is still rated as a C. No change, as elaborated before, as is, and as you well know, and as you are well aware of, that is still the same. So is also the assessment in general, from your 10 points all the way down to 0 points, as you can see it's stipulated in this small table here. Exactly the same concept as you've known it from the previous version from 2016. So that's a complete carryover as well. Downgrading rules, also untouched. Just remember, when you were with the 80%, smaller 80% in your sub elements or related to asterisk questions with 4 points, that is always considered when you are already in an overall compliance grade to even 90. So generally an A rating. So those downgrading rules are only applicable to bring you down from an A to a B. So you have to have an A to make these downgrading rules applicable. And on the other side is for when you're dealing with asterisk questions and 0 points, as we had it before, or the sub-elements smaller 70%, then it is irrelevant whether you come from an A or a B, you will straight go down to a C classification, as we had it in the 2016 version. So also here, no changes. We just worked that in to have the complete summary ready for you. And the turtle diagram, also the same. Just remember, as a little bit of a summary, that's also a very nice concept with the 6 submodels in P6, where you start with a process input in chapter 6.1. Then in chapter 6.2, you then have your work standards and your documentation, if you want to call it that. In 3, your personnel resources, so everything that's related around qualification. In 6.3, your material resources, then in 6.4, and in 5, your efficiency and your performance indicators, in order to leave then in P6 also the output. I'm sorry, guys, I just got something stuck in my. Let's go. So to have an output in P6, so that is also unchanged. And still the same as we had it before. What has changed, more important for you people, and what to look out for, is there has been a strong emphasis now also on the area of software. And we've marked it out a little bit. The quality-related activities relevant to software have been taken into account a lot stronger. And that's under chapter P2.4, or P2 in general, which represents now all your project management organization. So basically the vehicle you're driving to drive successful automotive projects. But now you're either in the physical component world or in the software world. I need to point out here, we've checked this already in the application of an audit. And you can see the references here. We know all the customer specific requirements from the VDA MLA approach, the majority level assurance, or the APQP approach for project management from the American customers. The software industry works quite with different aspects. The VDA MLA approach is not as easily adaptable to a software project or an APQP as you would like to believe. And they have, as you probably know, with that V module of an automotive spice, if that rings a bell for you, is quite a different project management approach than the ones we know from the physical components world in APQP and MLA. So it's quite tricky. So one would really, to apply this in a VDA 6.3 process audit, one really needs to be fully aware of how the V models work and how project management in a software development company deviates from a standard one experiences you might have from the physical components world. So it has been worked into this, but again, very tricky. So if you really apply this in the software world, just make sure that you are just as aware about project management structures like APQP or MLA in the software world to really make a valuable assessment on this criteria. So what's also a significant change, guys, is the opportunity that VDA provides to not only conduct a VDA 6.3 in a so-called on-site mode, but it also does allow hybrid audits or even remote audits under certain circumstances. And I really need to elaborate on this. And please listen to this. Make no mistake, VDA still doesn't have a very strong interest to deal with audits that are conducted in any other way than on-site. So that is still the prime interest that we have to do that. However, it does allow certain ways of auditing remotely or in a hybrid way. Hybrid meaning part of it on-site, part of it off-site. And what the standard now provides is kind of like a risk classification in three different types. As you can see it now in this presentation here, it does cater also. It has carried over also from many aspects from that ABC risk classification concept that you might know already from the MLA standard, in order to get an understanding and what justifies any sorts of non-on-site approach, meaning hybrid or even remote. And here you can see from type 1 to type 3, it's apparently related to risks, which is a clever idea to do that. There we have the risk assessment characteristics related to the product, of course, to the process, of course, suppliers. We discussed that already before. And also with regards to the project. So anything in kind like timing or majority levels of certain, in the majority level assurance, as you know, we have those eight areas from ML0 to ML7, or let's say for you as suppliers, predominantly from ML2 to ML7. This is where you usually get railed into the projects. And any project delays are also impactful and considered as certain criteria to be considered when doing a risk assessment to justify any decision from the organization if you do a remote or a hybrid version and going away from the much loved on-site version. I just want to warn you, you should have, and I'm talking to you now also as an IATF third-party auditor, you would definitely be able to show an auditor any sort of systemic approach that justifies your decision should you make a call for a hybrid or a remote audit. So those characteristics, those criteria that you're using, how you get to the assessment in a traceable manner is definitely keeping you away from any sorts of non-conformities or even considerations of giving you a non-conformity. And rightfully so, because it should actually follow a system that helps you understand, is that risk takeable to do a remote audit? As we all know, you're losing definitely effectiveness in the approach itself. So it must be aligned with certain risk criteria that you assess prior to making that decision. As the standard is very clear, it says the full responsibility for the outcome of any plannings and conducting of such audits stays with you as an organization. Either you do an internal audit at your own place or at a supplier. So whoever organizes the audits from as a client, if you want to call it that, stays with you. So you need to really sink your teeth in to understand what kind of criteria do you want to use, maybe over and above the ones provided by the standard, to really justify the call. Okay. And in the area of, as you can see here, the remote audit apparently only really promoted when you have a very low risk involved. So back to the MLA, there will be a risk classification of C, right? Anything else in the hybrid area, the standard now also provides you, as you can see here, for which P sections is a hybrid version or a remote version suitable, or, and you can see it already, they only call it conditionally suitable. And there you can see in the sections from P2 to P7 where you have certain sections where such remote or hybrid audits are suitable, that can support your decision, and where it's not so great. Wherever you see the X in a bracket, this is where the standard says, depending on the risk, you need to understand whether it's suitable or not. So in other words, when the risk is an A in MLA risk assessment terminology, the interpretation of this bracket X would be rather not suitable. All right. So, and if you're risk classified as a C, then more suitable. So this is how you read this table. It's basically giving you the guideline here where you should make your considerations and to justify also your decisions whether to go remote or hybrid way or not. But I think the take that we should all come around with here is simply that we should make a decision based on the risks that is involved in a project, in a product. Are there critical characteristics in place? What is the innovation grade of the technology, of the manufacturing process, the new processes? So there's so many criteria you can address and bring forward to really justify your decisions. But please mark my words. VDA also makes no mistake here. It's that whenever possible, go on site. That's what it is. However, under certain circumstances, if we do it cleverly, a hybrid or even a remote audit is available for you as an option. And that's run under significant changes simply because that option was non-existent in the previous version. However, the ISO 19011, if you want to go back, that's the basic standard of for any auditor's qualification of any management standard, does already discuss and mention the definition of remote audits. Chapter what has been omitted, no more longer. The process audit for services, as I already said, that was the last part of the previous 2016 version. There was the same question there for service providers. That has been completely eliminated. Not find that consequently you only have half of the pages, but 104 pages left from 205. So that's been dealt with separately. The audit process per se, the audit process has been omitted. That is, if you remember in the 2016 version, where the whole audit process according to 19011 has been covered in the book. So basically coming from your internal audit program, how you plan an audit, how you conduct it, the question technique, how you report and how you follow up a basic audit event. So standard chapter 6 in the 19011, if you want to call it that. And from that perspective, that has been removed in the new version. So you will be left alone. Remember, it's going to be a lot more difficult than for all the ones of you that are not yet certified or qualified VDA 6.3 auditors, and your intention is to become one. There is a prerequisite that you need to have a formal qualification in and around 19011, rightfully so, because that is the qualification program for an auditor. And due to the fact that there's no more reference to that in the new VDA 6.3 book, you have to be very clever in getting the understanding and the formal qualifications also from somewhere else. Lessons learned has been omitted as well. Back in the days, for the ones of you that know that, it was chapter number 10 has been removed as well, where it's talking about knowledge databases that you also need for the preparation for those audits, the state of the art in technology. So all these lessons learned were summarized in this chapter 10 that has also been eliminated. And last but not least, also that subgroup number 7, which was identified, the transport and parts handling, visions. There was not really something that the auditor would rate with points. That is something that the system spit out as giving you overall compliance, because it was linked to the identified crosses in the questions in the P6 section, because EU7 only occurred in P6 in the production area. So EU7 as a sub-element has also been omitted from the new standard. So you only go from EU1 to EU6, EU1 inputs, EU6 outputs, and in between then your red cross, as you well know from the trainings in content, work content in 6.2, personnel in 6.3, material resources in 4, and your KPIs and performance data in 5, before you then enter the process in EU6. So EU7 as a transport sub-element has also been removed. Drop and focus.
Hans,
Sorry.
sorry to interrupt. We can hear you absolutely clearly. We can see the slides absolutely clearly, but I think the sun is setting behind you, so we can't see you very clearly.
Okay.
Sorry about that. That's better. Much
Is it better or is it fantastic?
Fantastic. Maybe go slightly back more the other way. You're right or you're left, I'm not sure. I think you're right. There we go. Now you're clear. Thank you.
Cool. I didn't know that was also a criteria from marketing standpoint of view.
Always is.
Okay, sharp and focus. Some changes in detail. Let's sneak into this here. As I said already, the structure from P2 to P7 is absolutely the same. Let's have a look into this. 2.5 has been awarded as no longer being part of a potential analysis audits in P1. And of course, we asked the questions to the task force groups when we had our calibration trainings, and I personally was quite satisfied with the response that I received, and I want to share this with you. Remember, when you're doing a P1 audit, you literally have never dealt with this potential supplier of yours, and then it's of course very critical if you stress them and ask them all kinds of questions of purchasing, who are your suppliers, and how do you negotiate prices and all that. So the task force group found that a little bit too much for the likings, and for that reason, it has been eliminated as one of the questions in the P1 audit. Remember, P2 was the only section in VDA 6.3 where all the questions have been addressed during a P1 audit. So now we got -1 for that reason, but it has been brought into certain other areas more on the theoretical side. So they didn't want to stress partners or potential partners to make business with in the area of purchasing with sensitive information, and put it more back into the area of the theoretical. So how does a supplier onboarding systematically work, and what are the procedures for that, rather than what are sensitive project data in the area of purchasing. So in 3.4, where you have the procurement activities being planned and other monitored for compliance. So this is where you ask more about the theoretical, what are the selection criteria in general from the system side. So it has been shifted a little bit from P2 to P3, just to de-stress a little bit the contents of asking sensitive purchasing information during a P1, and stressing more the systemic side of selection criteria. How would you generally onboard a new supplier? So we are still in P1, folks. Remember, this might look very familiar to you at the first sight. If you have a second sight on it, it is a detailed change, because the rate function of being bared as a supplier that used to carry more than 14 yellows. So it has been reduced or sharpened from 14 to 12. Okay. Same in the area of conditionally improved suppliers. The yellow status was maximum 14. Now it has been sharpened up already, reacting by 12. And even the approved suppliers, if you remember, the previous version had maximum of 7, which is now a maximum of 6 yellows allowed. All right. And on the red section here, there's no change. So the change is from 14 down to 12 in the red, from 14 down to 12 in yellow, and from 7 down to 6 on the green status during a potential analysis audit. If that makes sense. The rest, the traffic light system that we have is still the same like in the 2016 version. Remember, the P1 works with the traffic light. The VDA 6.3 process audit works with a point rating system, as elaborated just a while ago. What do we have here? P2 2.5 is no more longer an asterisk question or a star question that we said, and the reason for that is, and I will show it to you later, there's a lot more procurement and purchasing activities questions stressed in P3 and P4 now. And why that is, I'm going to show you on a summary that I prepared for you at the end of the presentation. Yeah. So as a minor change, please just bear in mind the 2.5 in P2 is no longer an asterisk question, but when it comes into the real project in 3 and 4, then it's carrying the asterisks again. And 3.4 has been added. There you have it. That is also related to procurement, really when the project is happening. And people often say to me or ask me, I said, yeah, you always say the project starts really in P3 and in P4 and then into P6, but where is this P2 coming in? And I noticed over time that many auditors struggle a little bit to understand how this is all interconnected. So I'm going to present you then a slide just after this to clarify the summary of all the changes now in the questions. So for now here, there's a way bigger emphasis of procurement activities in P3 and P4. This is the message that I'm giving to you, and they reduced it slightly from the P2. All right. As you can already also see here, the P2 section has only 6 questions left, so 2.1 to T6. And the 2.7 question has been eliminated, which was dealing with escalations. So escalation, of course, in the project management is a hugely important requirement. Where companies often struggle to deal with escalation, when to escalate, under which circumstances to escalate, to whom to escalate, and all that. So that was covered in 2.7. 2.7 has been eliminated, but not the escalation. The escalation, as you can see, is now implemented in the questions 2.1 and 2.3. So just rest assured, escalation is still covered as a requirement, but it has been introduced into one mainly, and not been given a standalone question as we had it in 2.7. So consequently, you only find 6 questions, but the escalation under 2.7 has been included now in 2.1 and 2.3. So what's covered in P3, P4, and P5? Those are the typical, I'm going to roll this out here. P5, there's basically no significant, there's no changes in P5 when it comes to requirements and to the questions. But the reason why this isn't a comparison here look, in 3.4, you have the procurement activities being planned and are they monitored for compliance. So 3.4 procurement, as you can see now in P3, we have an additional question here. So the 2016 version showed all the way to 3.5. Now we've got 3.6. So the procurement activities have been implemented with a lot stronger emphasis for the procurement, because this is actually where it's happening. And because procurement requirements you find in VDA 6.3 everywhere, starting in P2, early involvement of suppliers, making sure that they are monitored, not only in serial life, which we have in P5, but also in P3 already in the project. They have to be early involved. They have to be monitored also in the project over maturity levels of the project, and not only in serial life. So the emphasis on procurement activities in general become a lot stronger also on the project side, and with a way bigger emphasis due to the before said reasons, which makes also perfect sense. Then also procurement here, again, you have these 5 in the sub-supplier management in 4.4. 4.4 is one of these, rightfully so, identified with an asterisk, related supplier related activities in and around the releases. The releases is, as you well know, on the PPAP parts, as you know, on the VDA 2 or PPA parts, or PPF parts for the German language speaking listeners of this event today. So this is really where it's becoming challenging. And again, it's also related to procurement, because it is the sub-supplier. 5.4 is related for the sub-supplier management, and in 4.4 is the real activity in the project implementation. This is in the product life cycle. Your P4 is the typical implementation, industrialization, process validation, process approvals into launch. Remember, this is the P4 section. When you convert the VDA 6.3 chapters 2 to 7, you cannot read it that way to say my project starts in P2 and ends in P7. There's a complete different interconnection of the P sections. And this is what I tried to visualize for you, because I realized over all the years of training that we sometimes struggled to understand and fit those P sections into a product life cycle. And this is what is relevant for us in this industry, is the product life cycle. So how does a project start from the request for quotation from a customer, when you start with all the feasibilities, which is actually your P3, and how it goes through with all the sourcing and tool sourcing and whatsoever, and then the stuff comes, and then you start industrializing, and then you start your validation, if you don't have a product design, because that would sit then in between, and then the approvals into a launch. So you cannot read it from P2 to P7 in this order. It's interconnected differently. But I'm going to show you the solution for this. So the take you should bring with it is, in this detail change, is that the procurement anything revolving around procurement, not only contracts and negotiation of prices, the dealing with the supplier management focus is a lot stronger, and not only summarized in the P5 where you always had it, that's why it's unchanged, but a lot more emphasis already brought into P3 and P4. That's where the actual project is happening, right? Yeah, and for the ones of you that are already qualified as a VDA 6.3 auditor, Tarryn, this ID 333 has been identified as a 4 hours online class.
Yes.
That is mandatory for the upgrade, right?
Yes. Mandatory for anybody who is a qualified VDA 6.3 auditor to the 2016 standard, and to confirm any trainings that have been run since 1st of January are, and qualifications on our side, are 2023 standard. So there is a this mandatory short online course, instructor-led, with a test in order to keep your qualifications relevant. All the information's on the website. There is a June 2024 deadline. So yes, it's a year and a half, but please don't wait too long and let your qualifications lap and have to redo exams and things like that.
Yeah. So June 2024, folks, has been identified as the transition deadline. All right. Within that, elsewise, and they made this point very clear. You're basically starting from scratch. So yeah, the earlier the merrier. And the ones of you that do not carry the current VDA 6.3 qualification, but is interested, or it's your desire to get into this field, then I would suggest that you maybe just make contact to our operations offices and receive, because there's quite some prerequisites now that come with to make it really challenging already to even get a seat in a course. Rightfully so, because the industry needs really experienced professional auditors out there. So certain prerequisites are mandatory, rightfully so, because you cannot become a qualified and experienced auditor in a course of 4 days with an exam. That's technically impossible. That's why they control it very stringently now over certain prerequisites. So, but what I did want to show you is now another presentation I put together, which basically everybody gets that joins our training VDA 6.3 training in ENCONA. This is basically, can everybody see the Tarryn? Is that visible?
That's good. It's quite small, it's quite small, but it's visible. Yeah. I think for phones it might be a problem, but on laptop it's clear. Okay, but you maybe going to join to share that with the delegates? Yes. I'll see. All right. So basically, now you have stipulated here your 7 sections, and there's one thing you can say if you look in a vertical colors, you see that P3, P4 into P6. This is basically how an automotive project runs. Because if you look at 3.1 with the customer specification inputs and 3.2 with the feasibility study, this is where your business units starting getting active and the engineering teams. All right. So the RFQ, the quotation, feasibility, then it goes its way. The reason why this is in a vertical structure is, and P3, the automotive project runs from a P3 sections into P4 into P6, and the rest, as you can see, is vertical, the P2, and spans all the way through P3, 4, and 6. And the reason being is because your P2 is nothing else but the vehicle you're driving to drive and run an automotive project. So that's why P2 is covered in P3, in P4, and in P6. In P6, in such a way as that you have your project handover usually 90 days after SOP. That's why it's also changing, running into P6. So P2 you will have applied in the whole automotive project flow, which is 3 into 4 into 6. And on the other side, you have the same thing with P5 and P7. P5 is nothing else but a chapter that contains supplier management related requirements. But the actual application of those P5 related requirements
they also apply in either 3, 4, and 6, where your project is running. And because if you look at 5.1, this is all the requirements how to select an approved buyer. You do that already in 3.4 because that's where your sourcing is coming, your onboarding for the project. All right. Or if you go an ongoing supplier monitoring requirement that you have in 5.5, that's technically happening in P6. That's where your serial production is running. So P5, P2, P5, and P7 are not in a sequence of a flow of an automotive project. And this is what this visualization should bring a little bit closer to the attention. And the same with P7. If you only look at the question 7.1, are customer requirements for the product process and the management system comply to, then you already in 3, 4, and in 6, and in 2. So because in P2 you already have quality system related customer requirements, either with the APQP requirement or an MLA requirement, and so forth. So this shows you now also with the new standard in P2 that we only have 6 more questions and almost 7. Remember, the escalation has been integrated now in 2.1 and 2.3. But what's happening here in P3, if you want to have a look at that, there's an additional question now, where in 3.4 with an asterisk, all the procurement activities is having a lot stronger emphasis already in the beginning of the project, which is rightfully so. That was a very, very, very good decision. And in P4, you see that the question P8 is also new, brought into P4. It was 8 questions before, now it's 9. Remember, in our training rooms, we always say 4.8 into 6.1.1. This is where the project handover is. Now it's 4.9 again, 4.9 into 6.1.1, because 4.8 is now also stressing whether the customer service processes have also been effectively implemented, and not only the validated products and processes and PPAPs. So that is a little bit of an add-on, but not really significant. Okay. So all in all, folks, if you ask me, the changes, the real significant changes would be the allowance under certain circumstances, as I elaborated earlier, on hybrid audits and even remote audits. Okay, and that's really something that's very, very, very significant. But as I said again, the preference is still, and also your customers will always prefer that you do on-site audits at your suppliers, or even internally when you have remote functions internally. But as per the guideline, it is under certain circumstances, under the consideration of certain risk factors and aspects, a possibility to also conduct remote or hybrid audits. Yeah, Tarryn, this is pretty much it. So really not the significant world that we have to completely re-engineer, but at a glance, these are the modifications that you have to deal with now outside. So I'm going to hand back to you. I don't know if there's some questions in your pipeline.
I do have one from Robin Jones. If the VDA disagrees with our assessment that a remote or hybrid audit was justified based on our assessment of the risks, is there an appeal process?
There is. That's a bloody good question. There is no formal appeal process considered in the guideline, but and this is what I said earlier. If you have a transparent, traceable, and transparency is given when you identify the risk criteria that you do consider when you make that assessment. All right. So if you have the selection of the criteria that you use, if you have a traceable, let's say, assessment system like the ABC risk classification of MLA would be a system like that with a point rating system, point rating up to 18 remote, then you are on the safe side. Because, and this is where you got to be very careful. And even if the OEM customer says, I don't respect that. And mark my words, I have this all the time. And this is where I have to challenge your customers as well. And we do. He would stand on no grounds. All right, because an auditor can only stipulate a nonconformity if he is giving you a reference to a requirement that he finds violated. And the requirement to be violated needs to be reinforced by an objective evidence. So what is he going to write there? No, there is no appeal. And if that is your system that you use with criteria, with assessment, and this is the result, you are fully aligned with the guideline. And then you must just push back. Unfortunately, the pressure waves coming and they push us over the limits. But according to 19011, you would be safeguarded, unless you make some complete careless decisions that you have a maximum points in your risk assessment, and then you still do it remotely. You know, that you question your own system. But if you have a traceability of that, you're on the safe side, and there is no formal appeal now.
Perfect. I think that's clear. Oh, thanks, Robin. Robin said thank you for the answer. That's clear. A question from Bertram. Who is responsible to have the VDA QMC software?
Sorry, who's responsible to
have the VDA QMC software? Is it the VDA 6.3 questionnaire, maybe?
Well, firstly, there's no requirement to have a VDA software. That is nowhere in a CSR. That is no IATF requirement. So this is a decision, that discretion to the organization to purchase. I would highly recommend everybody to do that. And I know it for myself. It just makes reporting so much easier. But there is no direct requirement to must have. So if you put up your normal Excel spreadsheet, whatever you want to have with the contents, so it be. But I wouldn't go this way. So, but an auditor, let's put it that way, could not write you a non-conformity for not reporting it on the software if you have it on your own, whatever case you use. But it's definitely, I can only advise everybody to go that route, because it makes traceability, and the ones of you that are dealing with CARA as an auditee, the software is on the same principle like CARA. It works in online and offline mode. You get full traceability. You get all your stat modules. So it's a brilliant tool. We use it all the time, but it's not a requirement to have per se. I don't know if that answers the question.
I think it does, because Bertram responded to the VDA analysis tool. And then one related to this, actually, Cody is also asking, is there a plan? I think I know the answer to this one. Even is there a planned update to the analysis tool online to have the new version and updates for these changes?
Yeah, they are working full steam on this. I think it's going to be released very soon. I think the beta version is already running here.
Oh, okay. A secret fairy helping me with some of these answers here. The tool is already available on the VDA web shop online.
Oh, cool.
Alternatively, if you can't purchase it on the web shop, we can certainly assist you. I know for some South African companies, there's issues with POs and stuff.
Yeah, could be. Okay, well, that's good. Well, then it's already available. Yeah, cool.
Already available. And I know I missed something. From Jamie, will the mandatory ID 333 training be required for qualified and certified auditors? Yes, Jamie, both are required to take ID 333 if you want to continue with a relevant qualification moving forward. I don't think I've missed any other questions. Oh, sorry. Anishwara, do you want me to unmute you? I think you've got a question. You should be able to ask it now. Nope. Maybe not. Okay. One final question. If we have been certified following the VDA 2023 version, do we need to follow ID 333? No, you don't. Hans, I didn't need you for an answer there.
That's how it should be, so I can retire.
Yeah, I'm learning finally. So yes, the 2023 version does not need ID 333. Folks, I think everybody's, I'm seeing a few moans and complaints, to be honest, about having to do ID 333. The good thing is the pricing is reasonable. It's not too much time out of your hands. You're already qualified, so it's not such a nightmare in terms of all of your prerequisites. Please do go ahead and look on our site at ENCONA.org and upcoming courses, and you'll find all the information you need regarding this course, as well as the calendar. But in terms of the webinar today, the electricity just came back. Hey, welcome to South Africa. In terms of the webinar today, I'm going to be sharing the recordings and the slides with you and the podcast, and you are free to share this far and wide. If there are no other questions, do you have prep material for ID 333 on the site? I think your prep material is really the new publication, which is included in the course. Actually, the course fees that you will see on the ENCONA, it's all included. Is there another way to get this other than podcast? Yes, I will also share it on YouTube and in our blog where you can download it from, etc. Cynthia, so you should be able to access it all sorts of ways.
Hi, Walter.
Sure. Is ID 333 training available online or in person only? We're actually at ENCONA so far only doing it online, live, instructor-led online, because it's a 4-hour session. We can do in person if there are requests. Cool. I think I've caught up with everyone's questions. That's it. Have a wonderful day. Thank you very much, Hans.
Thank you.
Enjoy.
Have a great day.
Okay. Cheers, everyone. I'll be in touch soon.
Bye-bye.